Thanks for joining and staying with us. I have the pleasure to hold up a panel discussion with the nice colleagues of Lamborghini and Aston Martin about a new angle of the connected car. It is particular for luxury brands. I think in the past years, as I'm now joining 20 years this industry, mostly has been talked about how to get it started, mass market brands to get it started. But mass market brands have a best idea about how to evaluate the cost. And for the luxury brands, obviously, it seems to be obvious to put all the services in front of your customer, but maybe you have certain challenges. And I want to get a bit introduction for you into that segment and what could be particular challenges for that, also what the customer of these nice brands want to have before we go into deeper discussions. So bear with me a bit. I want to put you a bit in the current landscape. What is the situation within that topic? Find out a bit the problem, hearing a bit what the customers are wanting, but also see what could be an opportunity for luxury car brands to achieve within that. If you look on the landscape, normally what happens in automotive is you have the trickle-down effect. That means you start in a high class, like an F segment or in luxury, and then these new technology innovations are trickled down to the mass market. That's normally how it went to, because you want to test it and give it your premium customers first. It happened in a few cases, definitely. If you see like adaptive cruise control introduced by Mercedes in the late 90s, and it happened then like Ford only have it like 2015 introduced for the mass market. But there have been also other experiences where like Oldsmobile have already started a head-up display really, really early, and it took a while until also most of the high-class brands have introduced that. But as I said, the tradition in the industry is clearly the highest innovation are introduced in the highest segments. We just have listed some experience there with the first automatic transmission pre-95 has been introduced, obviously, in high-class brands versus the others. Where some challenges, like Volkswagen Das Auto, has introduced some new things like dual clutches early, and this has taken down a while until it takes to the F segments. So there are also in technology some things, but particular if you go in the new area now, where we see the problem of the connected world coming up, and the disruption of what people are used, this puts up a complete new challenge to this luxury brand segment. If we dare look at technologies, and well, we just heard a talk with Jasper, or mobile operator, talking, we're talking that GM has introduced 4G introduction in 2014 already. And it's not that luxury car brands or the high segment currently can say we have all 4G connected cars. They now starting to embed it and before have it. Ford has introduced like apps in the car, also very early, as well as Apple, Google with their smartphone integration now come into that segment and try to bring what consumers are just used, especially the younger consumers, which may be also more the customers of the mass market cars are used, and bring that in the mass market car. So when we just look at SBD, we also operate the telematic news, where we have the topics there, and we just look historically from 2009 to 2017, which of the different segments in the car has introduced how many new markets and who have launched new first markets announcement. We unfortunately see that the super premium cars just also announcing, but never a first one in the market within the connected car environment. It's quite clear, okay, with the volume and premium, even the volume mass market are much more talkative and introduce much more feature because also they have more variety of cars to introduce something. But that is clear the topic. Everybody would expect a high-class brand to announce first market launch, but it actually has never happened the last decades. You also see that a high standard get a homogeneous factor. That means from the consumer industry, but also what comes up from the mass market, get state-of-the-art and compare what you currently get in a Fiat for a very decent price, like an 18-centimeter display, compared how your Ferrari is looking like. Is that not a bit strange if you want to have compared how it is look like? So what we actually did to introduce also to the panel some questionnaires is we have actually asked owners of luxury car brands in the US and UK what they expect from their car and why they have selected your car brand. So watch that.
Passed by 488s, Scuderias, and Speciales, and I thought, oh, I think I need more horsepower. I need another car.
Yeah. On these cars, I like to be able to go to point A and zigzag all the way through to point Z.
I didn't buy it because it got a lot of fancy gadgets on it. I bought it because it's a V12 6-litre Aston Martin, and listening to that engine beats any music.
The GPS or the entertainment system in a car is missing, but then again, driving a sports car, you don't really need that because you are concentrating on driving the car.
For me personally, there's probably a surplus of technology.
The tech package, they just don't push that. I feel like in some of those cars. When you get in a car that has everything, it's $250,000, but it doesn't have the stuff that my $50,000 car.
Music, to have a fingertip control interaction with the likes of a Spotify or similar into my car, so it's much easier to use and to operate. Voice control. If the car was as clever as Siri is at understanding what it is that I'd like it to do, that could be considerably better as well. Tesla, for example, you step into one of their systems, enormous, great big screen available to you, which is touchscreen operated, very intuitive, very easy to operate. I would much sooner be able to have more fingertip control inside an infotainment system than I would with the operation of this. It has the ability for me to park the car using an app, whereas my Maybach doesn't.
It doesn't even have home key, so I have to have my own garage door opener. But maybe they save 16 ounces or a pound. I don't know.
That technology and that pickup is really excellent. It's pretty. It is, I hate to say this, it's better than what I have in here. Network connection. If I subscribe, which you get that when you buy it initially. So that's cool. They need to do that here.
All I need is a screen. Just plug my phone in, and why would I have to pay the extra markup on a $2,000 or 15 or 1,000 pounds on a GPS system while everything's on the phone?
So we have heard now several different owners of different cars, and what was clear, the key three things is obviously they're buying it for the brand and for the prestige, not for the connectivity technology. They buy it because they're attached to the brand. They want to have particular conditions where they want to expect more than they get, because most of these cars also or owners own also other car brands, which maybe are more mass market brands, and they're a bit surprised that, well, maybe I don't need it in my Lamborghini, but my Fiat has it, so it's quite strange why I don't get that. And definitely there's an opportunity to differentiate for the luxury car brands between the different luxury car brands if they take the chance and pick their own thing, but they can't fall behind the mass market. That's the topic there. So the question is now, if we look at that, and I think it's clear, if we talk luxury car, we have 4 different brands. We cannot put the luxury cars under one umbrella. They have different needs. You have like the supercars, like the Lamborghinis and the other brands who have particular behavior. We have the more chauffeur cars, whereas the Maybach behind, the Rolls-Royce and all the stuff there. And you have the SUVs as well as the Grand Tourer. And if we now look how often these cars are used over the day, then also you can get a good idea of how much and what services they want to have. So the Grand Tourer, like the Aston Martins around that, I think that's a more day-to-day car, if you want to like that. They drive it day-to-day from around that. But the chauffeur, how much the car owner, not even driving, but sitting in the back are using it for a few hours a day. The supercars may be only driven on one Saturday or once a month or something like that. And the SUV also more as a prestige family car on the weekend if you want to make a nice tour around that. If you look at the different use cases, obviously, you have different use cases. They want to have support in the daily use. That means you want maybe to have a support on the same way as your normal car have, but you have different requirements. If I find a parking space with my Aston Martin, I don't want to have a Me Too parking space. It should be maybe a guarded parking space. So these special use cases are something you come with special content. You need that. Even they may be quite close to the use cases you have with your normal, also mass market cars. If we look at the chauffeur generation, they have really this personality. This one now sitting in the back should have the personal experience and apply to the brand around that. So it must be clear who's sitting, who's driven in the car. And funny, in the chauffeur, you have 2 users. You have the one sitting back who want a hi-fi internet connection, but you have the driver as well, who has some needs, as you heard. He wants to know where to come, where to park, and all the stuff there. If you look in the sports cars, as you said, very rarely driven. Use cases to, is my batteries charged? Is my car fueled? Are very important. So it's very important for the pre-drive to prepare it widely. Then on the drive itself, as you say, there you have the engine, you don't know fancy music. And on the SUV, you have a lot of backseat entertainment for the kids, for the families turning around when you do that. So very particular use cases. The really issue is, if you now look into it, you would say, well, then they just invest into it. They are high luxury brands. But look at, if you guess $500 million would cost you to set up a connected car program. It would, if you just roughly calculated, cost 75 euros per car for a Ford. But if a Bentley would do it, it costs $50,000 per car. And you can be sure this car is very expensive, but still your owner will not pay a dime for it because they're expecting it. So the key takeaways, before we now go and talk to the people particular, what are their ideas, what are their challenges, what are maybe the roadmap is, it actually don't matter really what you're segmented. Is it luxury car or not? But it must support the driving experience and your brand and not distract from it. Because it's nice to have it, but as you said, you want to listen to the sound of the engine, and it's nice to have a great music, but you actually don't want to listen to it. But also, don't look on what everybody else is doing. Concentrate on what your particular brands of user wants. That's the best takeaway to have it there. And from that, I want to get to my colleagues here, that you briefly introduce yourself and then ask a few questions how Aston Martin and Lamborghini is trying to challenge and to pick the opportunity within your brand.
Okay, good morning. My name's Sally Leathers. I'm the Chief Engineer for Electrical at Aston Martin. I'm also the internal champion for the Connected Car program.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Nicola Porciani. I am head of Connected Car in Lamborghini. I joined Lamborghini in 2011. Before I was working for our competitor Ferrari, so I'm pretty used about luxury segments.
Thank you both. Maybe Sally, you can start on what you see at your particular requirements for your customers, and what is actually the roadmap of Aston Martin talking about connected services?
Really, I'd say I'd agree with what the customers had said in the videos. I don't think connected car is a reason to buy a GT car. However, I do think we're on the cusp of it becoming a hygiene factor where, you know, as the customers were saying, they have multiple cars, their lower value cars have this technology, and that's what they expect also in their Aston Martin. So we're getting to the point where although we do currently provide some connected features, you know, we have stolen vehicle tracking, we're obviously doing e-call for the legislation, and we have CarPlay and Android Auto in many of our cars. That's now becoming not enough. And you may have seen in the press that we are diversifying into SUVs and also into EVs as well. And again, that technology, connected car, is a really, really critical thing to deliver for those types of vehicles.
Okay.
From my perspective, your presentation touched the right points. So connected service is not a must-have in our cars, but it's something that is expected. Because we are a luxury brand, our cars are really expensive, and the people simply is expecting something on our cars that they already seen in the mass market production. But what is changing is the way to interpret the connected car for the luxury brand. We have three main product lines in this moment at Lamborghini. The super sport cars, and you wrote that performance is over the top, and it's a must. So in this case, the connected service should improve or should enhance or should collaborate to improve the driving experience. Also in terms of sharing of experience and so on. Then we have another segment that we will introduce next year, that is the SUV, luxury SUV. In this case, the use case is different, but we have a common understanding that is luxury and the brand. So at the end of the day, the game is how to offer a connected services, a digital experience that is current with the brand across all the models.
Okay. Do your customers in the different region, like China, US, or Europe, they have different requirements, or is it quite okay to cover it with one approach for all?
For sure, there are some differences because if we're talking about Europe, USA, and also China, besides connected services, the expectation, also the usage of the car is different. Also today, just discussing about driving experience. And there is also the legislation that we need to take in account in terms of service that we should offer. But it's not the main issue for us, the differentiating in the markets.
Okay.
It's important just to offer. If once is buying a Lamborghini in China or is buying in USA, is buying because Lamborghini brand is strong, and the important thing is to focus on Lamborghini brand and what it is offering.
Okay. Sally, how do you also see like challengers from China, new brands in luxury there, or also challengers maybe in the coming from Silicon Valley or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that there are very different usage profiles for our vehicles in different markets. You know, if you look at China, there's obviously much less traffic, and therefore, you know, that you're needing to provide services that are, you know, more entertainment probably, because again, in China, most people are driven. So, you know, it just, I think it's always the same features, but they have a different priority, and there are different service providers that you need to link with. So everything we have to provide has to be equally globally relevant as it would be in a mass market OEM. And we have product planning people now stationed out in the different markets so that we can really get a proper market view of what their priorities are in each region. I think, it's been interesting as well that a number of the sort of more sort of forward-looking presentations have been from Silicon Valley and from San Francisco in particular today. And I think that just shows, again, how far ahead the US is in terms of availability of interesting and unique services, and particularly, when you think about luxury services, things like having a car filled, having it washed, that kind of thing. That's all services that are really far ahead in the US. Also for me, the other big thing, again, applies to us as much as the other big OEMs, is about data privacy, willingness of customers to share their data, different local data storage constraints and legislation, and also just the infrastructure quality in the different regions, and making sure that we're providing a solution that's going to keep working during those, during poor quality reception.
Okay. Talking about also your brand is the thrill of drive, obviously. So is it tricky also for your dealerships or something like that to get a message of other technology to your people, to not disturb them from the thrill of drive? Or how do you see something like autonomous driving playing a role at one point in your segment?
I'm starting telling that, we are telling usually that Lamborghini is a fun to drive car, no? So if we are taking away the driving, we are taking out the fun.
Yeah.
So I don't think that in this moment is in our focus autonomous driving considered really autonomous.
Yeah.
For sure, if we are discussing about support to driving assistance, something that is giving assistance to the driver, in order to improve the safety or also the performance of the drive itself, is something that we are looking for.
Okay.
For sure, we need to pay attention to introduce this technology, this digital technology that is expected in our cars, without destroying the driving experience that we have on board. So also in your slide was written that the digitalization that we have also on board, the features should not distract during the driving experience our customers. But we should support them.
They should support them. Yeah. So also the ADAS feature, obviously, to make them safe in a different, also very extreme driving situation maybe your customer's going through. Okay. I showed the numbers, obviously, what it could take to start such a program for not mass market. Thinking about partnerships to jointly invest or to bear the cost, where you are particular having your own brand image around that, and but being able to share some costs to get it up and running. How do you think about that in the whole partnership area? We're now talking about connected cars, more or less everything about partnerships.
I think partnerships have been part of normal business with small OEMs for a number of years. That's the way that we're able to deliver the features that we can deliver without spending those kinds of budgets. And that does sometimes mean compromise. So, we might have our ideal wish list of all the things we would like to deliver, but we need to find a partner that can help us fulfill the majority of those wants. We're very fortunate within Aston Martin that we've now got a partnership with Daimler to supply electrical architectures, and so we have access to some of their connected features in that way. Obviously, the data element is completely separate. We're different businesses, and we need to manage that separately. But we still, even with that partnership, we still have to curate the content to make sure that what we're delivering is the best value, that we do have a return on investment for what we're spending. But I think that's also an opportunity for Aston Martin. It's part of the luxury experience is that somebody has decided for you what they think you will use most often and just given you the smaller list. And especially on a car that you don't drive very often, that it's so important that you can just get into it and be able to drive it easily, and it's very intuitive and seamless. Part of that, I think, is actually just being much more selective about what we do offer.
The topic of partnership and investment needed for connected car is a big issue for us, no? Because we are talking about super sport cars, luxury brands. We are talking about 1,000 cars for Lamborghini, for Aston Martin, for other small brands, in comparison with the 80 million cars around the world sold every year. So we are talking about the peak of the iceberg. And so the question is how to offer a customized and differentiated connected service experience dealing with the investments. For sure, also in our case, we have a partnership. We are lucky because we are part of Audi Group. So we are leveraging in terms of hardware with our Audi company. But on the other side, we need to pay attention because we should be good to make synergies with them, to use what is possible, but without impacting on the last mile, on the final user experience. No? So this, our challenge is we should adopt components that is arriving also from our mother company, but without giving the same feeling. So the game is how to decrease the investment as much as possible, but on the other side, how to increase our customized user experience. This is a really big game, and we don't have right now, in my opinion, a big answer. But us, but also other small OEMs, because currently sometimes the software is too much linked to the hardware. And in an ideal world, in the future, we should have an hardware and a base software, and then an high layer software that is most customizable. In this case, we are cutting the user experience from the hardware point of view. Otherwise, the user experience is too much influenced from the hardware that you are using. Yeah,
and you want to be more obviously introducing independent services for your brand, not belonging on the whole group you belong or your partners doing it. So really an own roadmap, something like that. Let
me say, for sure, we need to offer both. No? From one side, we have seen that the commodity service that we have seen and that you can find also in the mass market, we can offer because are not a must to have because are expected because everybody has. But then on top, we should offer something more. And to do this something more, we need to do something clever, leveraging on the idea, but with reduced investment. Otherwise, we are lost with our volumes.
Yeah. Maybe you should think about collaborating like the others did on here on some other certain topics like premium content database, something like that, and make an whole cooperation around that. Last question actually I have, before we have there something, is a lot is always talking, what is with Silicon Valley? Are there challenges? Google, is Volkswagen afraid of Google launching a car? Are all the others there? Obviously, you're coming from a totally different angle, I think. Your customers are coming from a different angle, and your one USP is the quality of your cars and the quality of a service. You feel a bit threatened as well as from the Silicon Valley as maybe more the mass market would do that?
No, not threatened. Exactly. I think the challenge, it's really interesting hearing what Martin from Volvo was saying earlier about how they're sort of really embracing the Silicon Valley Android Auto services, Google services in their car. I think that's not something that we would be able to do. It doesn't give that kind of luxury premium feel. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing that's on your phone that you can buy for £100. What's different about a car that you're buying £200,000 for? So we can't have the same mentality, but we do need to be able to give the same user experience in terms of, your connected life is on your device, you bring it to your car is an extension of that life. And I think the challenge for us is to create an equivalent Aston Martin user experience that people want to engage with throughout their life, that's something that can offer them transport services outside their car maybe, or other kind of luxury experiences, restaurants, shopping, etc. That are their sort of curated collection of things that are relevant to the fact that you own an Aston Martin, but still, that still give you that kind of connection between your car and your life.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of see an opportunity, maybe not so much with the big giants, but with that sort of mentality of what's being done in Silicon Valley, that we can apply the same methodologies, but probably not with the same partners.
I agree with Sally. In my opinion, we should learn from them, from some approach, specifically on digitalization, also on the mindset, probably also on organization, because to approach this new world, we should change mindset and organization. On the other side, we should not forget our know-how and our brand and heritage. So we are so strong to make cars, we have a strong brand, we have a strong quality. We should start from this one, not to forget this, and then to put on top something, learning by the others, especially for the digitalization.
Yeah, that means, for example, having new approaches on your how to develop services. Just listen that BMW on the ADAS feature goes away from having waterfall model. They have now all topic-focused teams to do that. I think that's a way to go in an organization to really change that. But I think also it's, as I said, a key takeoff. You should not forget what your brand is standing for, and that's the quality of service. And I'm not sure really at these days so far you would sell one more car if you have, I would say, the iPhone mirrored into the car or something like that.
For sure, yes, I agree. For sure, we as OEM, we should change our mindset and organization because the current model is not suitable with the new challenges that we have. And we need also to cut the time to market for the software versus the time to market for the hardware, because are incompatible. So it's the same topic that I told before. We need to find a different agile way to develop the services independently from the lifetime of the car that is longer and with the longer development time.
Okay. You want one time you want to add?
Well, yeah, one other point I was going to make is, yes, we are late to the party in sort of adopting these technologies, but actually as small OEMs, certainly from my side, I think we've got some advantages in that connected car is a very cross-functional delivery, and being a small company, that's something that's easy to facilitate. So, I need to speak to IT, they're downstairs, I need to speak to marketing, they're in a different part of the same building. So actually building I have the impression that some of the larger OEMs have spent a little while inside their organisations learning how to deliver a connected car, and we're in a great position to be able to sort of take that knowledge that they've already developed and implement it probably more quickly because we're a smaller, more nimble organisation.
Yeah. I think as both of you are also very service-oriented to tell internally or to sell the connected car internally that give a better service to our customer is already an argument enough, where maybe mass market they start on, well, that don't care, but we want to sell the few more cars. I think there is the benefit for you and the chance for you to start on that and really make your individual programs.
And our customers are individuals at the end of the day. We have so few of them that you can identify with individual characters and say, well, what do you want? And therefore you're in a much better position to be able to tailor your offering to what's relevant to them.
And I'm personally looking very forward to do connected car benchmarking reports for luxury car brands very soon, I hope, with your and other brands there. So that was more or less the question I have. Anything left there or from the audience?
We do.
Then we still have time.
We have a lot of time, actually. You've still got
Good.
about 10 minutes or so. So it's up to you, Andrea, if you'd like to read these, or if it's quite difficult to read from there, I'm happy to read them.
Okay, let me check that. A lot of waiting here. Well, autonomous, we already have picked a bit around that. I think we also picked a lot of that already, telling, I think you don't expect to put all the effort you have on putting that cost on directly renewal or in return of invest to charge your customer extra for that service. I think you particularly look on a totally different case, as I said, to with a better service to have then, I would say, therefore the brand loyalty, you, I think, measure much more than mass market. So I think the investment of R&D is measured differently on a return of invest by your organization, or how you would see that.
I agree completely. We are not thinking in this moment to make money with connected car offering connected services. Also, if in the future we are thinking to some functions on demand, but mainly the main reason why is the loyalty for the brand, because then the brand is generating sellings and so on. So it's a loop. So for us, this main reason is this one.
Yeah. And there was just the question, I thought, that if you think of a super exclusive subscription models. Well, actually, I don't know what it is, a super exclusive subscription model, like a VIP service or one. I think for me it's more the service, I assume. You mentioned something with like washing the car or getting something like that. Or
Well, no, I think that that's a very relevant question, and that is something that's on our agenda. Extending the car club, there are supercar clubs around, extending that concept into something that you can do via your connected car app, because we've got to recognise this mobility as a service trend is coming, and it will influence on how people buy cars in the future, and therefore are they, they may not be as willing to have a £200,000 asset on their drive that they don't use regularly. So we need to consider how that same mobility as a service model might translate to sports car usage or luxury limousines. Why couldn't you have an autonomous Lagonda, for example, that that you can call when you need it rather than having it on your drive all the time. So totally agree that that's a model that's on our horizon.
did you already? Well, that's maybe not a question now, but personally, as I said, on the certain content, did you already evaluated like everybody who's providing third-party content? I actually have a friend owning quite a exclusive restaurant chain or something like that, and what he made is actually with a lot of luxury car brands dealership an agreement, if they buy a new car they get a voucher from a restaurant fee. And when he introduced what I'm doing and talking about connected car, he said, wow, I would pay a fortune, I pay Google a fortune to be top one ranked with somebody asking steak hotel in Dortmund or Düsseldorf. I would pay something to the luxury car brands if I ranked maybe very high in your search list. Any thoughts about that around thinking?
I totally agree with Nicola that selling the data is way off our priority list. I think our customers are much more interested in security, that they want to know that the data that they're sharing is being collected by us and being stored by us and only being used by us. So, we need to build that bridge of trust before we even consider doing anything with the data.
So I've seen that here in the question we were talking about the super subscription, also concierge services.
Yeah.
Yes, we are talking about the concierge services. Just also to answer to one of these questions, the key point is how are you implementing these concierge services? Because there are tons of concierge services, for sure. What we are thinking about is a concierge services that is super exclusive and connected, because the additional value in comparison with a normal concierge that you can have with your credit card and the phone is that the connected concierge is knowing also where is the car, what you are doing, so it's leverage the services, also knowing what are you doing exactly in that moment with the car. But it should be super exclusive for sure.
Yeah. Are you also, one question I found interesting is there an appetite, I like that, to get more insight how your users are using your car, to get access to car data? Is that also a motivation to start on connecting car, that you maybe then not in the service connected car, but in the car design or in the features design? Is that also a particular driver for luxury car brands?
Okay, now for us, we are interested for sure. when we are talking about big data, I'm smiling because we are talking about 1,000 cars.
Yes.
But it's a really, it's a
Big
really
data
important
points,
anyhow
but
to
yeah.
understand the habits of our customers in order. Mainly, yes, what you told is right to believe to the next generation of cars more than leverage on the current business.
Yes, again, I agree. You know, our cars have different usage cases to the mass market, and particularly with EVs. You know, as we're moving into that market, we need to know, you know, how customers are using their high voltage batteries. Is there any opportunity to extend their range of the battery if they're not using the car with the same severity as a high mileage EV would be used? So definitely getting data from the car is just as critical to us as to other people.
Okay. Well, the number one question is the iOS in the car. I'm not particular know how is that for your brand. I think that's in general a question on that. So do you see any request from your customers on, have you ever been asked, I want to have my phone mirrored really in the car, or it should behave like my iPhone or something like that?
Well, a high percentage of our customers are iPhone users,
Yeah.
so I'm sure they would love to see an integrated iOS in the car, but it's not really a question for us, it's a question for
No.
Apple. I would be surprised if they're not doing it because of Google's position, but so far we've heard nothing.
I don't have an answer, but what I can tell you is that Lamborghini customer, the 80% of Lamborghini customer has an Apple.
Yeah.
Okay, starting from this point. So they are starting from that user experience.
Yeah.
So for sure, we need to provide something inside the car that is in line with what they are experiencing every day. Then how to introduce this user experience with iOS or another system, I don't have the answer. For sure, there are some trends, but I don't know who will win in the future. We have iOS, but we have also Android N. Then we have other systems. I don't know who will win. For sure, there is a battle in behind from these giants that want to take the user experience of the car and the OEMs that want to maintain the control of the user experience inside the car. I don't know who will win, but for sure, the needs is to be flexible in the future. The key point is to offer a flexible system that is where you can add on top differentiating services without not much effort. This is the key point.
Okay. Good.
I think the other factor with our cars is they've got a very long life.
Yeah.
You know, people keep them in collections. They're expecting, these cars are expecting to have 10, 20, 30-year lifetime, and that's a particular challenge for us, is how to be relevant now, but also think about how we maintain those cars and how we keep them relevant over that lifetime.
So topic over-the-air updates are definitely something there, but also how long it's still supported. As you know, some iOS systems are not anymore supported, but your cars, they should still work, and you need to maintain them and feature them. I think that's a particular...
What happens when 4G's turned off, for example?
Yes.
You know, all those kinds of challenges, you know, are things that we need to think about.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, a topic we don't challenge, like the sunset of the different connectivity, as particularly your cars have a very long life cycle. So talking about 2G sunset, 3G, 4G, 5G, that's even a very tricky thing to talk there with your MNOs. Coming from an MNO before, I know how never making promises on any lifetime expectations, better not. So I see that definitely a challenge there. So just one last point, or maybe you hit that earlier, Sally, on talking about data protection. Being in German obviously is a hard topic, but your customers are VIP customers. I think that is particular, talking about cloud, data in the cloud, shared platform, hacking cars. Is that a topic you're talking, data security and data privacy, when you set up a program, particular item you need to asking and you need also to tell to your customers?
Data security, it's an issue, it's a big issue For sure, we are also leveraging on the experience that we have as a group in order to secure the data that are also in our services. It's a good advantage. Then from a customer perspective, when we are offering some services, we are giving them some choice, and so they can decide if they want to share some information, also the car position. If they don't want, they can put a private mode and they cannot be reached.
Okay.
It's their choice.
Yeah.
Totally agree that it's a very, very big topic within Aston Martin, and one that our CEO is very passionate about is data security and privacy.
Okay, thanks. I think that was it. Thanks for your attention. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, Sally. And they are still around if you have any questions or any questions asked. Thank you very much.